Typically, without context, I would say I don't trust the polls, period. But in this case, these are different polls, and this is a different story. This says, the justice minister announces in Poland, if that's not clear, this is from Poland, IN, which I think is just Polish international news. The justice minister announces online freedom of speech bill. And this is actually exactly what people in the United States have been calling for here. This is what we want out of the conversation around 230. In my opinion, this is what we really should have. And people have, like Sticks and Tim and Salty and others have said we need an online Bill of Rights. We need the courts to recognize that our current Bill of Rights exists in a digital and online platform presence as well. So from Poland, they're leading the charge on this. This is Justice Minister Zbigniew Ziobro announced a legal initiative on Thursday aimed at enabling internet users to file complaints against the removal of online posts, as well as the creation of a special court for freedom of speech. So I don't know necessarily if Poland has a constitution that includes freedom of speech today for citizens just in public. But this is Justice Minister Zbigniew Ziobro, I think it is, said the aim of the bill was to give internet users the feeling that their rights are being protected and that their posts cannot arbitrarily be removed from online platforms. So someone goes on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and posts something that is outright nationalistic and pro-Polish, but it doesn't have anything that is illegal, and it just says, Poland is the best country, all the other countries suck, ! Twitter could take that down. That could be seen as inflammatory or anything else. I mean, you've seen Facebook remove things for less. So this says, under the full name of the bill, the law on freedom of expressing one's own views and searching and disseminating information on the internet. I think they could find a better name for it. Under the provision, social media services will not be allowed to remove content or block accounts if the content on them does not break Polish law. So again, what we've been calling for in the United States is for the Bill of Rights to be recognized online and to include and cover and protect rights online, or we need to have a Bill of Rights that exists separately online to protect freedom of speech, identity, search results being honest and true and not manipulated. There are a lot of things that we should be talking about outside of just what's protecting the user and their information. We should also be setting the rules for what information may be put out. And I don't mean to say that we should censor individuals, but I mean that if you type into a Google search bar and you say Joe Biden corruption, they should not be legally allowed to manipulate what is shown there. They should only be legally allowed to show you the most accurate result for that search, given the criteria you entered. I mean, it should be algorithmic where any company could be doing the same thing. Instead, Google uses its own algorithms to doctor and shade and manipulate and push certain things and silence other things. And so we should have laws surrounding what is allowed to be done there, I think, as well. Says, under the new provisions, social media services will not be allowed to remove anything. We got that. In the event of removal or blockage, so when they do it, a complaint can be sent to the platform and they will have 24 hours to consider it. Within 48 hours of the decision, the user will be able, so after 3 days then, total, the user will be able to file a petition in court for the return of access. The court will consider complaints within 7 days of the receipt, so the entire thing will be a 10-day process. If you got locked out of your account in Poland because Twitter said you violated terms of service, or they just simply removed a tweet of yours, you can take them to court and have it up within 10 days. I wonder what this will do for shadow banning, because I don't know that this bill will be able to control shadow banning, so they'll just change their tactics, I'm afraid. The social media companies will just say, we'll no longer ban that account, we'll no longer remove that group, we'll no longer cancel that event, but we will just completely shadow ban it and silence it, so the only way you could see it is with a link, and then we'll just remove the links in messages so you wouldn't know if the other person had clicked it or not. They wouldn't know if you sent them a link or not. And that's where we're going. You've already seen on Facebook they've removed anything to do with 17. If you were to try to link something to a 17 aggregator, you won't be able to. You can send a private message on Facebook and send a link, but some of those links are removed. Just like they were in Twitter, if you tried to do a DM of the New York Post for the Hunter Biden stories, you couldn't send it. It would show you that you had sent that link, but the other person that you sent it to, be it in the same room as a test or halfway around the world to try to actually share information, either way, it didn't go through. That's censorship as well. We should have laws regarding that. It says, quote, often the victims of tendencies for ideological censorship are also representatives of various groups operating in Poland, whose content is removed or blocked just because they express views and refer to values that are unacceptable from the point of view of communities with an even stronger influence on the functioning of social media, Mr. Ziobro said. So the justice minister in Poland recognizing that we could not any longer in Poland allow for these communities that are really mostly run, he says, even stronger influence of the functioning of social media by these communities that do not find the family values, nationalistic views to be acceptable. So if you were a brown-shirting, Polish, neo-communist, Nazi-ish person, and you ran the social media fact-checking in Poland, you're removing all of the different pro-Poland, pro-Trump, pro-national, anti-Nazi, anti-communist, all of those different posts you're removing or shadow banning, and they're suggesting, he's outright saying, that when those people lean left, we have to do something legally to protect the right. That's what they're doing. He says, quote, we realize that it is not an easy topic, and we realize that the internet, there should be a sphere of guarantees. For everyone who feels slandered, a sphere of limitation of various content, which may carry with it a negative impact on the sphere of other people's freedoms. But we would like to propose such tools that will enable both sides, enable both one side and the other, to call for the decision of a body that will be able to adjudicate whether content appearing on such and such social media account really violates personal rights, whether it can be eliminated, or whether there is censorship. That's interesting. So he's not just suggesting like the left has a panel that will determine your fate if you've posted something that gets flagged. That is suggesting you've already kind of been condemned, and really they're just in a sentencing phase, whether they're to go lenient on you or to lean heavily into punishment. Social media giants want to punish you. The larger your influence, the more vocal your speech, the bigger your reach. And so for the others that are smaller, myself included, you just find yourself shadow banned from time to time. You're not going to really see a bunch of bans. You may see a couple suspensions if you use the wrong kind of language. But in this context, what he is suggesting, the justice minister in Poland, is correctly, I think, calling for a board that can look at it and truly hit both ways. And what I mean is they can look at a post having been removed and say, okay, did this post violate the law? Yes or no? Okay. If not, well, did it violate someone else's personal rights, or should it have been eliminated because it's either unsafe or it's a call to action or otherwise? Yes or no? If no, was this just censorship? And if so, the special court rules in favor of the plaintiff, and the internet service provider does not obey the ruling. It can subject the internet service, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc., a fine of up to, and forgive me because this is like the Polish national dollar, 8 million or 1.8 million euros imposed by the Office of Electronic Communications. So OEC is going to fine these companies globally when they misoperate, and I don't know if that's a word, but it should be. For these global tech giants, misoperate should be a word because that's what they're doing. They're maloperative. They're operating with malintent around the world to try to control thought, to control speech. They know that politics follows culture. They know if they can control culture, they will inevitably control the sphere that politics operates within. And that is what we discuss when we talk about the Overton window and the left pushing that Overton window further and further left. That is to say, if you didn't know, the Overton window is what we consider to be containing normal and acceptable conversation and dialogue in a given society. So in the United States, it is not within the Overton window to suggest cannibalism as an actual policy. If people are starving, let them eat one another. That's not in the Overton window. But you've noticed in the last 10 years, a city giving drug addicts needles so that they can go use drugs in a park, in public, would never have been considered in the Overton window. But now it is, and it's policy in most leftist cities. So just understand. Thank you. Just understand. If you can control what society thinks of as being inclusive in culture, and again, the left is all about include. We have to include all of these weird sex things so that they can now include pedophilia as being just another one, right? That's how they're going to sneak themselves back into the mainstream. Don't allow it. They're pushing the Overton window further left. Poland just ripped it wide open. They just said, hey, if it's legal to discuss, you can discuss it. And if you try to censor it, we'll fine you to death. And that's per instance. So 1.8 million euros out of Poland, out of Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, etc. Any social media company that is censoring or blocking content, accounts, results, you name it, they can be fined 1.8 million euros. That's what they're suggesting here from the Justice Minister Zbigniew Ziobro in Poland. And wow, I mean, I'm impressed. So let me know what you think in the comments. Like this video, share this, get this out to your representative. Let them know that it is possible, that it is commendable, really, and we should be doing this. We should be pushing for something similar. I'll leave you with this thought. Before you subscribe, hit the notification bell, all of that good stuff. And again, share the video, comment below, like it. This is what my thought is. When Trump said the other week, well, a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now, that we're going to completely get rid of and dismantle 230. People on the right and the left said, independent creators, a lot of them said, this isn't the case, this isn't the right move. Sticks, Hexenhammer said, this is not the right move. And here's why. We need to reform it or add to it, but if we remove it, that's what they want. They want us to completely outright remove 230 so that they can say, well, we don't have to have protections. We'll just get rid of anyone who's not verified, like Tim said. Tim Pool had said this is their next step then, is to completely control who is speaking, not just who you're able to listen to. It's one thing if you have 30 million people speaking, but you only want 2,000 of them heard. You have to get rid of a ton of people. What if you only had a platform where you allowed those 2,000 on and the 30 million just listened? That's called mainstream media again. That's called the boob tube. And that's what they're going to turn YouTube into. That's what they're going to turn social media into if you get rid of 230. So instead, hold them to those protections, but widen it and say you're also not allowed to remove content that exists within the framework of the law already. You're only allowed to remove content or speech that breaks the law of the land that you're operating in. That's what the law should be. Poland's on it with the first step. Send this to your representatives. See that they can, be stirred by this, hopefully. But just to prove the point, I think that Trump said we're going to completely get rid of 230 because if you've not read The Art of the Deal, he's going to ask for something that is far beyond what he actually wants or could really need. That way, when they say, no, we don't want that, and everyone says, no, don't repeal 230, don't repeal 230, he'll say, correct, we don't want to repeal 230, we want to actively reinforce it and make it more proactive to guard against censorship and to protect legal speech. Period. And then people will say, yeah, that's what we want. And then he'll have done it. He'll, instead of going to the middle right off the bat and getting about 50% of people on his side, he'll go way over here. He'll reach far too far first, saying repeal 230. He'll get these, 2/3 of people to say, no, we really just want the middle. And then he'll come back and say, okay, great. We'll go right here into an honest, normal suggestion, which is just protect speech. Include the digital spaces, include online platforms in the Bill of Rights. You don't even need another amendment necessarily. It can be done with court precedent. You just need the right case. So like this video, comment below, let me know what you think, and then do everything else that you can do to keep America up.